Greetings, it is I, Tentus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue our discussion on SHADOWRUN. We were talking about magic in the Awakened world last time. This time we're diving farther into sorcery and spellcasting. I'm going to tell you about the steps of spellcasting. That's the big thing I'm going to go over today. So there are 7 steps in spellcasting you are going to take. The more you become familiar with them, the less that these steps are actually steps, and they begin to blend together into one seamless transition of what you need to do to cast a spell. So effectively, I'm going to learn by using it over and over again how to cast a spell quickly and efficiently that I don't have to worry about a lot of bogging down here. But there are technically 7 steps you're going to follow when doing it. The first step is choosing a spell. This is, of course, the most important thing you're going to do. Choose whatever spell you're going to use. Whatever spell you're going to use, you do have to look at the first thing, which is if you're sustaining any spells. I'll talk about what it means to sustain, but for each spell you're sustaining, you get a -2 to your dice pool when casting a spell. So if I have 2 spells I'm already sustaining, I get -4 to my dice pool for whatever spell I'm going to cast. At this point in time is when I would choose to take the free action to get rid of those sustained spells, because I can, as a free action, just go, not sustaining them anymore. That way I would open up my dice pool for casting this spell. So step 2, we're going to look at the force of your spell. Now, as I've previously said, you want to usually keep your force to your magic score. That's the basic number you're going to have. And if you're just casting the spell for the sake of casting it, that's probably what you're going to do. On the other hand, if there's a time when you want to use less force, or if you want to overchannel and use more force and worry about physical drain, this is when you choose to use it. This is the second step. So changing the level of force from your basic magic is an option, but usually you're not going to take it unless it's seemingly deemed necessary. Like, oh, there's this really tough guy over there. I have to overchannel and do this huge blast of magic in order to stop him. On the other hand, I don't want to, I just want to do something mild and small. There are options for when you would do that, but again, it is situational, and I would keep to the basics. This is, again, going to streamline it, that I can choose spell, choose force right away. Third, choose your targets. So when you're targeting something, you have to figure out first, am I in the physical world? If I'm targeting someone in the physical world, I target someone physical. If I'm in the astral plane and astral projecting, I will target someone astrally. There is an exception between these two, because the first one, I can only use physical spells against them. Second one, I can only use mana spells against them. There's the big exception. If I'm astrally perceiving. If I'm astrally perceiving, I can target someone in both the physical or astral plane. Still, the same thing applies, though. I can only target something that's physical with physical spells. I can only target something that's more astral with mana spells. Though, I can target something that is magical in the physical world that would have an astral signature with those spells. So I would have to be astrally perceiving in order to use both at the same time. This is something I will talk about doing later. So, now the next thing you have to think about is the fact that any use of technology that would replace your normal vision does not allow you to target something. That means I could not look through a camera and target someone. I could not look through binoculars and target someone. I have to be using whatever my natural sight is in order to target someone with a spell. Now let's talk about area spells, because these are an exception. I've already just talked about targeting someone. Area spells, I'm targeting, well, either something that starts from a point or is an area spell. I choose that point and I have to see that point. If it's an area spell, of course, it's going to expend from that point. If it's an effect that's just affecting that point over there, I have to be able to point to it. So it's like similar to a person, I have to be to see what I'm pointing at. If it's an area spell, it will expand in force meters out from where it's going to. So if I'm using a force 6 spell, it will send out 6 meters. I can change this by voluntarily reducing the dice pool I am rolling before I roll my spell. So whatever my dice pool would be to cast the spell, I could choose to reduce those number of die. And for each die I reduce it by, I can increase or decrease that area. So let's say my friends are relatively close by to this guy, and I know, oh, my basic amount is a force 6, and I want to have that option of the force 6 for the maximum bang for my buck. Well, he's 5 meters away. I can subtract 1 die. Not going to hit him then. That's the choice of it. Changing the area of a spell does not affect its drain or any other statistics. It only reduces the spell casting dice pool I have. So your force is the same, your power based upon that force of what your spell is going to do, and the drain will remain the same. Now, I can cast multiple spells with one complex action, so one spell casting action, I can indeed cast more than one spell. I can cast a couple at a time. I can cast them because I can split my dice pool between these spells. I need at least 1 die per spell I am casting. The maximum number of spells I can cast at one time is equivalent to my spellcasting skill. So if I have a 4 in spellcasting, that means I can cast 4 spells at once, just all of a sudden. BAM! I can do that, but I have to split my dice pool appropriately, so that means these dice pool might be very small and might make it very difficult to actually cast those spells successfully. But each dice pool will be treated separately. I would then roll drain, of course, and everything for each of those spells I'm casting. So I might get hit by drain from all of them if it really comes up. Now let's talk about the 4th step, the spellcasting test. This is when I roll my spellcasting plus magic. Now it will have modifiers to it that will add or subtract dice depending on a lot of circumstances. Visibility actually affects you when you're casting at this point in time for the possibility of targeting. Also, certain things you can have, like fetishes and other bonuses, might apply to your test to give you extra die in this attempt to cast the spell. Now let's move on to step 5, the effect. So we're streamlining this first part here. I could basically say I'm casting this, I'm using my base force, I'm targeting them, which is very easy to see. The first thing I'm going to worry about is my dice pool. I have my basic dice pool. My game master might tell me if I have any visual modifiers. So step 5, the effect. I see how many successes I have. Certain spells might have a threshold of a certain number of successes you need to have certain effects. Others are just a basic success test where you see how many you get. You can always choose to use less successes. That means if I have blah damage I'm trying to deal to this person, and I get an awesome amount of successes, which in the case of whatever spell I'm using would add to extra damage, I don't want to nuke them, I don't want to kill them, I can use less dice. Now if the target is living or magic based, it will resist your spell. Now depending on the type of spell, depends on how it resists it. If it is a physical spell, it will resist it with whatever body it has. If it's a mana spell, it will resist it with willpower. Certain spells will tell you if you can add certain things to it. Normally, the only things that you're going to be adding to these resistant tests are, of course, if someone is protecting you with counterspelling, you'll get the counterspelling dice. Or if you're behind some kind of astral barrier, you'll get the barrier's force as a bonus number of die. For example, indirect combat spells will also have armor to them because they are a physical sort of thing. They are indirectly physically hitting you, so you can apply armor to them. Now, you can also usually affect objects or non-living, non-magical things with your spells, but depending on how well they've been processed, effectively how much man has tampered with them depends on how difficult it is. You'll have to actually meet a threshold of successes to actually affect it. So it's not only do I have to cast it, but it might add an extra threshold to this test in order to affect it with the spell. Now, like with the indirect combat spells, it's going to be more of a ranged attack than anything, so it might have ranged modifiers, and again, the target will resist with their armor. Now, normally, a spellcaster will know when their spell is successful, but there are times and places where they might not. It will be up to your game master to determine when you understand that, oh, my spell was successfully cast. And this is implying a spell that has no physical way of seeing that's successful. Like, you don't know, oh, I don't see that guy's wounds healing. I don't see a burst of fire appearing on that guy. Something that I would not see it. It is, again, up to the game master if you would really know that the spell is successful, but traditionally, you would. Now, if you glitch, normally this means your spell has an unaffected side effect. Like if I'm using some kind of burst of fire, smoke might remain inside because I glitched. If I critically glitch, on the other hand, that means I may hit a different target. If I'm targeting someone, completely different one than I wanted to. Or it could change the drain if my drain was stunned to physical all of a sudden. Those are examples of things you can use for a critical glitch. Now let's move on to step 6. Drain. Now is when you resist it, where you use your willpower plus the attribute that is relevant to your tradition. I talked about traditions before, that you get a second mental attribute that is used to resist drain. And this is the point in time you roll it. Wound modifiers and sustain spells do not apply a penalty to drain test. That means if I'm already wounded, I still get my full drain. If I'm sustaining a spell, I get my full drain. And I just roll and see how well I resist the stun damage or the physical damage if you're over channeling. Let's move on to the last set. Effects. Step 7. This is going to be when we're going to talk about what it means to sustain a spell. Certain spells, you can sustain them. You can keep them going for many turns as long as you effectively wish to sustain them. For each spell you sustain, you get a -2 penalty to all other dice pools. That means as long as I'm sustaining a spell, I get -2 to all dice pools I'd be rolling because I'm concentrating on keeping that spell going. I, of course, could maintain as many spells as I want to. I could sustain as many, but my dice pool keeps shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. Now, if the sustain spell would be something like an area, I can move the area, actually. I would have to take a complex action, so I wouldn't have to make all my dice rolls like I'm casting the spells again, but I could effectively then spend my complex action to move my sustained area effect somewhere else. Now, depending on what your game master wants, there could be a point in time where circumstances, either you're getting hit by something, whatever environment you're in, could interrupt your sustainment, your concentration on sustaining the spells. If that is happening, your game master will have you make a spellcasting plus willpower threshold 2 test. If you get enough successes, you've maintained concentrating, sustaining those spells. If not, you lose them because of what's going on. So that's it for today. I talked about the 7 steps of spellcasting. And as I said before, the more you do these, the more they blend together. Like the sustaining spells, if you're not sustaining any, you don't have to worry about it. The drain, you just roll the test, see the results, roll the drain, you call it a day. Those like 3 steps in there, they can just wash over really quickly. It's as easy as that. And, you know, as I said, the more you use it, easier it is. Next time, I'm going to talk about ritual spellcasting, counterspelling, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to start talking about conjuring, bringing spirits into the world to serve you. So if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. Show your support for the channel, the Empire, and the work I do. And until the next time, I bid you farewell.